It began like a story written in shadows, one that blurred the line between fiction and reality. Jung Yoo-jung was an ordinary girl in South Korea, known to be quiet, reserved, and deeply obsessed with crime novels. But beneath that still surface, something dark was taking shape. Late at night, while others slept, she wasn't just reading murder mysteries. She was studying them, memorizing details, and imagining herself inside those stories. Her fascination with death wasn't entertainment anymore. It was an education. One cold evening, Yoo-jung's obsession reached its breaking point. She found herself staring into the mirror, whispering the lines of a killer from her favorite novel. The reflection staring back at her no longer looked like a girl. It looked like the character she had built inside her mind. And that's when fantasy turned into plan. She began searching online for tutoring jobs, but not because she wanted to study. She wanted to find her first character, someone real, someone she could play with, someone who would never know they were walking into the pages of her story. Tonight we step into that story, not as readers, but as witnesses. This isn't fiction. It's a crime so chilling that it forced an entire nation to question how far imagination can go before it becomes a weapon. This is the true story of Jung Yoo-jung, the girl who let her favorite stories come to life at the cost of someone else's. Jung Yoo-jung spent her days locked away from the world, hidden behind glowing screens and pages of novels filled with blood and betrayal. Every word she read stitched a darker part of her soul together. She wasn't interested in love stories or dreams. She wanted the kind of endings where people vanished, where killers walked away unseen. Her online history showed endless searches for perfect crimes, how to hide evidence, and unsolved murder stories. But nobody noticed. To the outside world, she was just another shy girl living quietly in her apartment. Her phone became her only companion. She joined forums where people discussed crime psychology and the motives of killers. The lines between reality and imagination blurred a little more every day. She began to wonder what it would feel like to cross over from reader to participant. She once wrote in her notes, "Stories feel real. Maybe they could be." That single sentence would later send chills down every investigator's spine. By the time she reached her early 20s, Yoo-jung wasn't reading to escape life anymore. She was studying to replace it. The novels had taught her everything: how to plan, how to act, how to lie. The only thing left was to find her victim. Posing as a parent looking for a tutor for her child, Yoo-jung reached out to several young women online. Her messages were polite, her tone gentle, the perfect disguise. After days of searching, she found one woman whose kindness shone through every text, a 26-year-old English tutor who loved teaching and helping students. The girl had no idea she was speaking to her future killer. Yoo-jung arranged for her to visit her home for a tutoring session. That evening she cleaned the apartment, not like someone expecting a guest, but like someone preparing a stage. Every object had meaning. Every step had been rehearsed. In her mind, this wasn't murder. It was the climax of her own story. When the doorbell finally rang, she took a deep breath, adjusted her disguise, and opened the door with a calm smile. The real story had begun. For a moment, everything was still. The victim entered, smiling, holding her teaching materials. She didn't notice the gloves on Yoo-jung's hands or the faint tension in the air. That one moment of trust, the simple human kindness, would cost her life. Inside that quiet apartment, time froze. The girl who had walked in to teach English never walked out again. What happened in that room was the result of months of dark fantasies and emotional decay. Yoo-jung acted without hesitation, cold, calculated, emotionless. The crime was not random. It was a performance. When it was over, the silence that followed was heavier than any scream could have been. For hours afterward, Yoo-jung sat motionless, staring at what she had done. The air was thick with the smell of iron and something else. Regret, maybe. But even regret wasn't real to her anymore. She treated the aftermath like a puzzle, calculating her next move with clinical precision. She wasn't panicking. She was executing the next chapter. When the night deepened, she began cleaning the room. She wore gloves, covered every surface, erased every trace. But what she didn't realize was that no matter how well you clean, guilt leaves its own stains, the kind that never wash away. In the dead of night, Yoo-jung packed the body into suitcases, each movement slow and deliberate. Outside, the city slept peacefully, unaware of the quiet monster walking among them. She loaded the bags into a taxi, her face covered by a mask, her eyes steady. The driver would later tell police she didn't say a word, not even a breath. She reached a remote forested area near a river. Under the moonlight, she carried each suitcase one by one into the darkness. The sound of water mixing with her footsteps echoed like a warning. She thought she had done everything perfectly, the timing, the route, the disposal. But she didn't realize the forest was covered with security cameras and her perfect plan already had cracks. As she left, the night swallowed the evidence. But nature remembers what humans try to forget. The river would soon tell her secret. The next day, a jogger passing through the area noticed something unusual, a half-open suitcase near the riverbank. Inside, police found what no one should ever see. The discovery sent shockwaves through the quiet neighborhood. Within hours, the crime scene was sealed off and the hunt for the killer began. The only clue was a taxi's camera footage showing a masked passenger carrying suitcases that night. Detectives worked day and night. They traced every possible lead, every missing persons report. When they reached the victim's last known message, a text about meeting a student's mother for tutoring, they knew they had something. The digital trail led them straight to Young Yoo-jung. Her online activities, her fake messages, her browsing history, all painted a picture of a killer who thought she could write her own ending. But reality doesn't follow fiction's rules. When the police knocked on Yoo-jung's door, she opened it calmly, as if expecting them. There was no panic, no fight, only an eerie stillness. Inside her apartment, investigators found evidence that tied her to the murder. The victim's belongings, blood traces, and even fragments of her disguise. Confronted with proof, Yoo-jung confessed almost instantly. She told the detectives that she had been fascinated with crime novels since childhood. She wanted to know what it felt like to kill someone. Her tone was emotionless, almost curious. One officer later said, "It felt like she was describing a dream, not a murder." The news spread across South Korea like wildfire. The nation couldn't understand how a girl who looked so ordinary could be capable of something so monstrous. The story shattered the illusion of safety, reminding everyone that evil doesn't always come with warning signs. The deeper investigators dug, the more disturbing the story became. Yoo-jung had spent years consuming violent fiction and murder documentaries. Her search history revealed an obsession with how real killers think. Psychologists described her as detached from reality, living entirely inside the stories she read. To her, murder wasn't a crime. It was a curiosity. She told interrogators that she didn't feel anything during the act. No fear, no thrill, no regret. Just emptiness. That emotionless response terrified even the most experienced officers. Forensic experts called it one of the most psychologically chilling cases they had ever seen. By the time the case went to trial, South Korea wasn't just horrified, it was questioning how a human could lose empathy so completely. Was it the books she read, the isolation she lived in, or something deeper, something born inside her that no story could explain? In court, Young Yoo-jung appeared emotionless. She spoke softly, her eyes empty, her voice calm. When asked why she did it, she said, "I just wanted to know what it feels like." The courtroom fell silent. The victim's family wept, and even the judge struggled to hide his disbelief. The prosecution painted her as a remorseless killer who had turned fiction into blood. The defense tried to argue mental instability, claiming her mind had been consumed by loneliness and obsession. But nothing could undo what she had done. The evidence was overwhelming. and the nation demanded justice. When the verdict came, life imprisonment, she showed no emotion. No tears, no reaction. It was as if she had accepted that her story had finally reached its last page. Prison didn't change her much. She spent most of her time reading and writing, though the books were no longer crime fiction. Some said she was studying law. Others believed she was searching for redemption. But inside those walls, silence was her only companion. Outside, South Korea tried to heal. The victim's family started a foundation in her memory to help young tutors stay safe. They wanted her name to live longer than her killers. Documentaries, podcasts, and articles turned the case into a lesson, not about murder, but about the dangers of obsession and loneliness. But even years later, people still ask, what drove young Yoo-jung to do it? Was it madness? Curiosity? Or a hunger for control? Maybe we'll never know. Maybe she doesn't either. Years later, a journalist asked Young Yoo-jung if she regretted her actions. She looked up, eyes hollow, and said, "Regret doesn't bring people back. It just stays." That one sentence summed up the emptiness that had always lived inside her. The girl who wanted to live a story became the villain of her own. Her prison cell became her ending. 4 walls, a bed, and the ghosts of the stories she once loved. The world outside moved on, but her name remained carved in headlines, a reminder that sometimes imagination can kill. She had written her masterpiece in blood, and now she would live inside it forever. So the next time you pick up a crime novel or watch a mystery show, remember this story, because sometimes the difference between fiction and reality is just one broken thought away. If this story left you shaken, don't just scroll away. Subscribe to Unseen Mystery and turn on notifications because next week, we'll uncover another real-life story that will make you question everything you think you know about human nature. Stay alert, stay kind, and remember, monsters don't always hide in the dark. Sometimes they're sitting quietly behind a glowing screen.